Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. Let's discuss nationalism just a little bit, shall we? We've got a couple comments here from Rucka, reacting to Rucka 2 of 2. Pardon me, I don't mean comments from Rucka, I mean comments from the video regarding Rucka. And Brian says, identity nationalist is an admission that identity is a paramount value and a requirement for citizenship in the nation. It is not the same as just nationalism. Be careful with this. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us be careful with nationalism. Oligarch Slayer agrees. So I'm on board with that. Now, I see this post, which is timely, from the Objectivist 9 Rand fans for Donald Trump. There's a lot of these different groups on Facebook, and I've just subscribed to a couple more in the last couple days. So I click on this, and I find, oh, it's about Peter Schwartz's piece, and I've read it before. I'm familiar. And this was published in 2017, so this isn't new. And the pamphlet, Peter Schwartz, was from 2004 and updated in 2014. So, you can find this at militaryhistorybookreviews.blogpost.com. I'll leave a link if I can remember to. One glaring example of Schwartz's inability to apply abstract concepts to reality is his treatment of nationalism. So this is a very strong statement against a prominent objectivist thinker, Peter Schwartz. According to the author, says the author of this blog post, nationalism is always based on collectivism and requires tyranny. And now this is from page 19 of Schwartz. This individualist approach to foreign policy disavows any form of nationalism. Nationalism is a collectivist idea which regards the nation as the primary unit of life and which holds the citizen as obligated to devote his energies to the glorification of whatever state happens to declare him its subject. Now, when Mr. Cropper read that and other things, when I read these things years ago, I said, okay, fine, but patriotism for America is a separate thing, because we've got the Constitution and we've got real traditions that go back to the Renaissance. So patriotism with the Constitution in mind is a different thing from nationalism. So I always put nationalism as like believing in Germany because you're German. And that's why I say if you live in France, you should be an American nationalist. And when I say that, people from Pakistan pipe up in the comments and say, I'm in Pakistan and I'm an American nationalist. So take me seriously. There are people around the world who love America. Even though they don't live here, they realize how valuable it is as a nation. A lot of you dingbats who live here in America don't realize how valuable it is. All right, continuing with the author of the original blog, back from Schwartz now. This characterization of nationalism is based on one discredited definition for the concept. Schwartz cannot distinguish Prussian nationalism from legitimate patriotism, nor does he have any inkling of how and why nationalism and the nation-state developed from earlier types of medieval polities. Now that's where I want to bring up what really is the base of nationalism. Okay? The creation of the sovereign nation-state was in response to Europe's endless religious wars. It came to be understood that the nation preceded the state. The nation being an identifiable people who share certain cultural traits that make them distinctive from others. Now, that last bit is stretching it a little bit. I would go just one step before that with my definition of the nation-state. I would say that the nation-state is the first line of defense against the dictatorship of the Pope, as originally conceived. Now, he gives us there, the nation is an identifiable people who share certain cultural traits that make them distinctive from all others. Originally, it sort of started out like that because you got together with your fellow group of people and defended your town or your city, your group of cities, your region, against attacks from the Pope. Now, ladies and gentlemen, think about what's going on here. It was either the disintegration of a dictatorship of the Pope, or it was a disintegration of a multicultural dictatorship. In other words, the Pope was the dictator over a whole bunch of different cultures and religions and regions and countries. But either way, it was some kind of dictatorship. It was either a multicultural dictatorship in the sense that the Pope just had some sort of theoretical power and not really daily power, or maybe he did actually have daily power, and in some cases, he definitely did have daily power. Maybe not all over the land. Maybe it was just philosophical power in some areas. Okay, maybe it was just philosophical influence. So this is splintering of the philosophical influence of the Pope. Those of you who want one world dictatorship, just, we've had this stuff before. So the Pope was being taken out. That was the growth of the nation, okay? It was the first line of defense against the dictatorship of the Pope. Now, the group of people you get together with is your nation, and so then this idea does develop over time. Okay, so I just say that it came from a slightly earlier root. Generally, the people of a nation developed a regard and loyalty to one another that is not necessarily bad or collectivist. Now, if it is for self-defense against aggression, what is wrong with that? Turning to the guy to your left and to your right and saying, here come people that are trying to cut our heads off and destroy us. Are you ready to defend our town? Now, is that collectivist? If you say, no, this is collectivism, I want to be an individual, and you just go walking out onto the field and the enemy army comes and kills you, how individual are you? How brilliant are you? So the first thing to do is preserve your life. And then, once your life is safe and preserved, you can be an individual as long as you maintain that machinery that preserves and protects your life. But you have to have machinery to preserve and protect your life. You can't just be an individual. There are places out there like Soviet Russia that have armies and nuclear weapons, and you got to take it seriously. People who didn't take that seriously and just wanted to be individuals and sit there in their little cafe in France and smoke their cigarette and write their brilliant little books and paint their brilliant little paintings lived under a Nazi dictatorship because they weren't willing to defend their country. Okay? So first, you maintain your freedom and individualism. Then you can practice that individualism. Okay? Let's not get it backwards. All right, continuing. That people like Schwartz are incapable of feeling such a sense of camaraderie with their fellow Americans is their loss. Yes, true. And it's frightening and it's scary that you guys equate nationalism with American patriotism. Or when I say I'm American patriot, you guys think nationalism in this bad sense, only in the leftist sense of racist Nazism. That's the only sense you guys can think of nationalism. So the left has defined nationalism for you. So you're defending a leftist talking point. How do you feel defending a leftist talking point? Okay? Nationalism is the first line of defense against the dictatorship of the Pope. Now, if the dictatorship of the Pope is gone, then the only dictatorship we have left on this world to fight against is that of the Muslims. So you might want to change Pope to, let's just change that real quick to, there we go. Just to make it grammatical. All right, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know now what the nation is? It's the first line of defense against the dictatorship of the Islamists. Why is France such a failing piece of garbage country today? Because they fail at French nationalism. So they can't even have people walking around with baguettes and drinking wine anymore because they'll be beat up for drinking wine. Because they failed at protecting French nationalism. Now, I'm not a French nationalist. particularly because they always fail at protecting their nation. So I don't think they have a very good idea of what goes on in the world. I'm not a German nationalist. I'm not even a British nationalist, although I would like to have been, but they have let their country fall to pieces. When I was younger, I had fantasies of living in London. No more. No more. They do not protect their nationals. So the nation is the first line of defense. And once you have your nation in place, you can go do your little individual thing. You can read Stephen King books and mow your lawn and go wherever you want to do. So I'm an American nationalist. Nationalism's not a bad idea. Nazism's bad. And if you let the left define all your terms, then you're just going to walk around saying, don't be a nationalist, don't be a nationalist. All right? Now, I'm not only an American nationalist, I'm a jingoist. Jingoism comes from the chorus of a song, and here's the chorus, it's from the 1800s. We don't want to fight, but by jingo if we do, we've got the ships, we've got the men, we've got the money too. We fought the bear before, and while we're Britons true, the Russians shall not have Constantinople. There we go. How do you like that? The Russians shall not have Constantinople. We've got the ships, we've got the men, we've got the money too. Okay, isn't that brilliant? So that I'm a jingoist. The Russians shall not have Hong Kong. All right? All right, so we gave the Brits gave Hong Kong back to the commies. We can't really do anything about that. Maybe we should. Maybe we should start a jingoist song. Don't twist my arm. Because if you twist my arm, I'll say, okay, send in the ships. Send all of our ships into Hong Kong now and stop the Chinese from taking it over. Do it. Preserve Hong Kong's freedom. Sign a 99-year contract with the people of Hong Kong. Allow the people to vote on it. And if they vote on it, then we'll sign a 99-year contract for mutual defense, and we'll just kick the Chinese out. We'll annex the territory. Okay? Let me give you an example of that. Probably the first use of the term in the U.S. press occurred in connection with the proposed annexation of Hawaii in 1893, after a coup led by foreign residents, mostly Americans, and assisted by the U.S. minister in Hawaii, overthrew the Hawaiian constitutional monarchy and declared a republic. All right? Now that is brilliant. By hook, nook, or crook, we will expand freedom across the world. So far as some Hawaiian island out in the middle of the Pacific, what does that have to do with manifest destiny and all of our connected lands? And so then we buy just hand them a check, a huge swath called Louisiana, and not to be content with it, we purchased Alaska later on. Trump had better purchase Greenland. This is beautiful. Just handing out checks, and the freedom grows. Now sometimes we can do like we did in Japan, Germany, and South Korea. Why didn't we do that with Iraq and Afghanistan? You knuckleheads. Why do the people of the United States of America not support Iraq and Afghanistan being turned into a Germany and Japan? All right, if it costs us too much blood and iron, then we shouldn't do it. And that argument has been made that it's okay to stay in Germany and Japan because they're quasi-civilized, but the Middle East is not even quasi-civilized. So okay, if you do that, fine. But it just turns, I think, how much more would it have cost us just to do with Iraq and Afghanistan what we did with Germany and Japan and South Korea, and just stay there and start building freeways and subways and McDonald's everywhere, and just say, sorry if you don't like it, guys, you are now part of the American empire. Too bad. End of story, end of conversation, end of argument. I don't know what's going to happen in Germany. We might have to withdraw our soldiers and let them just be undone by we're going to have to take the nukes. We're going to have to take the nukes out of Western Europe, guys. We've got to get the nukes out of Western Europe, guys. Okay. Yep, I'm an American jingoist. It is nationalism in the form of aggressive foreign policy, such as a country's advocacy for the use of threats or actual force, as opposed to peaceful negotiations. Now, I don't mind peaceful negotiations, like when we sent the gunboats into the harbor in Ningansing or wherever, Tokyo Bay or wherever we went into. We sent these gunboats in and we said, would you please open up your trade or else we'll level this city. Okay, so I don't mind peaceful negotiations. As long as American power grows and grows and grows. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I think of nationalism. That's what I think of American nationalism. I think the French should defend their nation, and I think anybody that attacks America should, at the end of it, should look a lot like South Korea, Japan, or Germany. And I think that we failed miserably with Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, if you like what I do, please go to Patreon and support me so I can do more of this. I want to move towards being something like the Joe Rogan of objectivism. Not necessarily agreeing with everybody that I interview and talk to, but having a whole lot of very juicy and interesting conversations, sometimes, it seems, on forbidden material. Some of you are afraid to speak of such things as nationalism because they ring and drip of racism. So let us discuss these things and have the objectosphere not be afraid of being American patriots for the greatest and only great nation on the planet today. There we are. Patronize Mr. Cropper if you like, support, and agree with what I do.